So, just to explain the qualifying procedure, the co-drivers did the first qualifying session. They've got their times. The main drivers did their qualifying session. Now, the teams nominated who would start this first race. They have to do a compulsory driver change between laps 14 and 18 over this 30-lap duration, And so, where Simon Evans is lined up off the pole, his time still stood well enough, qualified second for the main drivers, that they will start up front, which means Shane van Gisbergen starting race 2 would also start off the pole. So that's a bit of a bonus for those guys, because Evans was actually third overall quickest across both the co-drivers and the main drivers.
I think there's a bit of luck involved there too, Jamie, because not everyone knows obviously who's going to start what car. So it's a bit of a lotto draw for a while, and it worked in their favour of beauty. They got the Powerball today. Biggest
surprise, probably Greg Murphy in qualifying. Jack Perkins out-qualified him by 0.4 of a second. Murph was a little bit further back than he would have liked in P5 in the qualifying session for the main drivers. That car just did not look balanced.
I think a lot of guys got caught out in the second qualifying. It was fine and sunny for qualifying 1. Qualifying 2, the cloud had come over, covered the sunshine. The track temperature dropped under 20 degrees, which is quite cold. Although this place is, only sort of 100 k's from a huge mountain full of snow. And it obviously didn't really work out for some of the guys. A lot of guys got caught out with tyre temp.
So Shane van Gisbergen top qualified for the co-drivers. He will use his grid to start at the head of race number 2. Andre Heimgartner actually polled in the main drivers qualifying session at a 1:29.3, Van Gisbergen at a 1:29.1. Now, the interesting thing there, Shane, is that we're about a second off qualifying record pace set by McLaughlin last time we were here in Taupo. The track is quite dusty, and it is certainly slower than it was here a year ago.
It's a slightly later time of the year, which you'd think would be a benefit than what we've done in the past, but still going to make it interesting.
We are ready to go racing here at Taupo. The field lined up behind the Sangyong safety car. Simon Evans off the pole, and that will be his first front row start out of position 1 ever. The team's first ever pole with Shane van Gisbergen knocking on the door of a possible first race victory, but we've got 30 laps and 11 other teams to try and get through to get to the end of that one. A lot's going to happen. Pit stops again crucial. Mark Pedersen's going to be down with us in pit lane, keeping us up to date throughout this race. And Pedersen on the outside. They've had a bit of an eventful weekend so far with some exhaust damage in one of the earlier practice sessions. Paired with Johnny Reid in the J.A. Russell colours. Out of the final turn onto the front straight. Cloud cover back over Taupo. Race number 1 for the BNT NZ SuperTourers. Charge down into turn number 1.
Nice clean start by Evans.
A little bit of a nose-to-tail story getting into the back of John McIntyre, 2 of our onboard camera cars. Big lock up there for Pedersen, and he's actually dropped back to 3rd. I think that was Richard Moore sliding up into the 2nd position. Now there's just 3 co-drivers starting, and they should have a green light on in the left-hand corner of the windscreen. So the primary drivers with no green light.
This is Murphy on Shea Davies, who's paired up with Paul Manuel. Number 15, Paul Manuel returning this year.
On board with John McIntyre returning to the wheel of the Blackwood Protector Ford.
It's a big slide through turn 8 by McIntyre, and he's right in behind Murphy.
Little lift there as he...
Murphy going around the outside of Davies.
Oh, big lock up from Murph, and not for the first time this weekend. We saw that in the main drivers qualifying session as well.
McIntyre's gone around the outside, so Davies caught napping there, the regular Carrera Cup driver from Australia.
Yeah, currently placed 6th in the Carrera Cup in Australia, formerly with Andy Booth the last time we were here at Taupo. So Greg Murphy just not really happy with the car balance with the Mike Perro Mortgages Commodore so far this weekend. He was fairly strong in practice earlier on, but struggled a little bit in qualifying. As Shane said, might have got caught out with the changeable conditions. We've gone back to a cooler temperature from what we saw earlier on in the qualifying sessions. Back on board with McIntyre.
Very easy on the throttle out of there. Hankook hairpin.
Oh, big sideways twitch there.
Yeah, I reckon it's going to take about 3 to 5 laps for these cars to actually start feeling reasonably nice and safe under them. as he gives Murphy one.
Yeah, just skipped the front end out. He just lost it under brakes there.
No, he didn't.
A lot of the teams have been struggling with rear tyre temperature especially. So Simon Evans, your race leader. He has started the Smeg Racing number 4, Richard Moore in second. Johnny Reid.
He's actually
Ant Pedersen should be in the car. It's got Reid on the scoring, but it should be Ant Pedersen starting the car based off the information that we've got. And again, if the light isn't on in the window, that is the main driver in the car. Pedersen monstering. At the top of the circuit as Moore runs off the edge of the track, and a lot of that dust is getting blown back on the circuit. Now that's a rear diffuser off one of the cars sitting in the middle of the back straight.
Jeez, there's some blocking going on down the sound straight.
McIntyre trying to find a way around Murphy, launches down the inside, he can't get the job done. And Murphy's actually holding up that next group of cars, with Shay Davies just in behind.
Davies come back to speed, but McIntyre's thing looks good reasonably early.
Paul Morris in the Hydrolink number 22. Sharing that drive with Andre Heimgartner. Morris, half cheeky look down the inside just to let Davies know he's there. Back on board with John Mack, who will be starting to get fired up. Like Murphy's just got away from him a little bit here. The number 1 Mike Perro Real Estate. Mike Perro Mortgages, Holden Commodore, 2-time champion. Fresh from a second place finish at Sandown with the Holden Racing team and James Courtney a couple of weeks ago.
A lot for your confidence doing a 500-kilometre race as McIntyre sneaks it up towards the inside in the TR group, turn 7.
Well, that's the thing, Shane. A lot of the regular, local drivers have not had much seat time over the last 4 to 5 months, whereas the V8 Supercar regulars are, well and truly into their season, and they are well and truly race fit.
Well, it makes a big difference. If you drive, it's a little bit like driving your car in the weekend, Jamie. If you only drive at the weekend, it just takes you a bit to get accustomed. McIntyre pokes it up inside. There's going to be contact. Oh, no, he turns Murphy around.
Didn't go right around, but it certainly delayed them. And look at the congestion in behind them. Davies takes advantage of it. Here comes Paul Morris to the outside of John McIntyre. Now, that is the number 14 Ford in there as well.
Murphy's got damage, big damage.
John Penny starting the number 14 Sean Varney car. He's had a good start, the local driver, former NZ-V8 racer. Raced with Paul Manuel in the Enduros last year. So Murphy continues on, but he's been delayed. Dominic Story going up the inside now. John Penny slowing.
Front straight has now.
Well, this is looking dangerous back here in the pack where Murphy is. This is where all the trouble happens. We've got Varney there in the white car. That's the Cunningham Waters car.
I don't know what happened to John Penny there in the white and green number 14. That's the Shane Van Gisbergen Ford as the Cunningham Construction Ford up the inside of Murph.
Nice move by Cunningham, and here comes Foggy. Big dent in the door on the side of the number 1 car, but I think what was flapping around's gone.
Yeah, it's damaged.
Oh, it's the whole sills come off the car. His car's looking not very.
He's lucky not to get the exhaust damage, similar to what we saw from Ant Pedersen earlier on in the weekend.
Murphy's backing out of it. He's out in the dust.
Yeah, Murphy's got some problems. I wonder if he's got a steering drama. Mark Pedersen's down in the pit. He might be able to update us with that. And saw the Mike Perro team will be on the radio. Mark?
Sorry, Jamie, certainly can. I just had a word to Paul Forgy, and he said there's been no reported damage just yet, unless Greg's just come back on. But the other thing too, we've got to keep an eye on, guys, is turn 9 on the exit of it just before the start of the race. They had to do some local repairs to all the curbing because the bricks they got on the out part of the track where the cars running were lifting up, and that was damaging some of the cars. So if they come up again, it could be mayhem.
That's where one of the issues was for Ant Pedersen earlier on today with the damage to the left side of the car, and it closed up the exhaust exit.
Well, to add to that, it actually did a massive amount of damage to the Mitch Cunningham car there in the background, and a whole rock, apparently, huge rock, something coming out the back of, is it Dominic Story's car? Right where here comes Murphy's in the pit lane.
Murphy's in the pit lane. It's before the pit window. This is not scheduled. Greg Murphy has an issue with the Mike Perro Commodore, the reigning series champion. Not a good start to his championship campaign.
Well, one would be certain that Paul Forgy would have heard something, and it wouldn't have been nice, I can tell you.
So let's boys actually come around to the left, left front side here. So probably we saw that big flat spot to begin with. I have to say, a bit of a tardy stop here. The boys, So we'll see if we can get this tyre when it comes off. But, man, there's an awful lot of damage down to the left-hand side of this car.
Yeah, Chris Hanley's just gone off while you're talking there in pit lane. He's rejoined. I'm not too sure where he's gone off, but he's been delayed. Mark might be able to get a look at that tyre to see if it is in fact a flat spot, because he did have a fairly significant brake lockup earlier on.
Actually, Mark, the interesting thing, as soon as that contact happened, a whole spiral like a curly fries peeled itself off that tyre.
There is damage.
And swung out on the track. And the same happened to McIntyre a lap later.
Yeah, there is some damage to the exhaust.
Exactly right, boys. They've actually shut this engine down now. They're still looking around the left front. You can see the damage to the exhaust. Look, we'll just see if we can have a bit of a cheeky sneak into the tyre here. What's the second here, but...
And Pedersen.
And Pedersen down the inside of Moore at turn 1.
Whoa,
he's got the run. He's got the run. But can Moore live there on the outside? It's not over. Moore back up the inside.
What a battle. What a great bit of driving so far.
This is going to help Simon Evans, because these two are holding each other up, battling side by side up through to turn number 5. Pedersen had to concede.
Fantastic driving by those two. That is, sometimes people just don't give you room through that part of the circuit.
Yeah, that's giving each other racing room. Mark, any updates on that tyre with Greg Murphy?
Yeah, I'm actually here with it right now, and you can actually see what happens here. It's just torn all the rubber off the side of the sidewall of the casing. So it was only a matter of time before this thing went down anyway. So you got to say, absolutely smart move by those guys.
Yeah, he obviously picked that he had an issue on the spot. Thanks, Mark Pedersen. Right, back to the racing. Simon Evans has gained hugely out of that. He's out to beyond 2 seconds. Richard Moore trying to hold off Ant Pedersen. He got jumped at the start. Pedersen down
nice
the inside. Up in the Fuchs corner at the top of the circuit.
That is great driving, Ant Pedersen. Oh, he's actually
Well, Moore's got a better exit run. Moore got a much better exit run with that momentum. Ant might have been a little bit narrow and just couldn't get the power down cleanly. But Evans is going to gain out of this hugely. A 30.8 for Evans, 30.8 for Moore, 30.8 for Pedersen, their fastest laps. Just about identical fastest laps, but that gap's gone from 1.5 to 3.6 seconds as Greg Murphy rejoins, but he is a couple of laps down in the Mike Perro Commodore. So the lap window for the pit stops will open at lap 14. Currently it's Simon Evans from Richard Moore, Ant Pedersen, Shay Davies, Paul Morris, John McIntyre, Dale Wood, Mitch Cunningham, Angus Fogg, Chris Hanley completes the top 10 of the cars out on track. Sadly, no Tim Edgell, damaged an engine earlier on today. They've got another one coming from Auckland. They'll be back in action, hopefully, for races 2 and 3.
It's number 96 car, looking very, very racy. It's all over Richard Moore in different parts of the track. Moore goes a little bit wide as they head through turn 9. Remember, don't go off here because there's some loose concrete around. Well, I'm sure it's gone now, but there must be a hole left.
How good is that corner? That is a hold your breath corner in one of these 1,375 kilo touring cars.
Here's Pedersen. He thought about it, but just not close enough. So this time he'll try and get a better exit.
John McIntyre and behind Paul Morris. McIntyre currently in the 6th position. Just hearing on race radio that under investigation the incident between McIntyre and Murphy.
Be dealt with at the end of the race.
McIntyre launches down the inside of Paul Morris. Very relaxed Paul Morris. He's enjoying his racing in Australia. Really enjoys the sprint car racing on the dirt. Got the opportunity to race up at the Holy Grail of sprint cars, Knoxville. Murph's back in the pits. Might have done some steering damage with that. They were having a fairly long, hard look under the left front of the car.
Yeah, suggests you're right, Jamie, that when you're under the car and poking your hand right up under the front of the car, they're looking at steering or a track arm. There he goes.
Typically wheel-to-wheel, Mark, that doesn't tend to end well, whether it's a V8 supercar or an NZ SuperTourer.
No, it doesn't matter what you're in as we all know, wheel-to-wheel. It's going to end in tears, but we saw the damage before, mate. Look, we'll just have a bit of a canter down here and see if we can actually find out exactly what happened.
Sorry, mate. Morris just had a big
off behind John
off at turn 7 there.
Just shows you how hard they're trying. I mean, early stages of this race with 34. Oh, McIntyre, you can hear the tyres squealing through turn number 9. So Evans now with a 4.9 second lead. Pedersen up to second. It's got by Richard Moore.
We missed the pass, but it was inevitable. And now he'll go after the number 4 car of Simon Evans. Ironically, the car that we're looking at there on screen, number 96 car with Pedersen teamed alongside Johnny Reid. This is the car that nearly took Johnny Reid to his sprint championship. He missed out by 2 points.
Yeah, that was in the first season, that gearbox issue. Yeah.
So he's been reunited with his old car.
All right, so that's the battle for second and third. Evans is out to a 5.4 second lead. Pit stops are not too far away. We're 6 laps away from the pit lap window opening, and it's going to be interesting again with these pit stops as to who can get it done quickly and cleanly. The bench time seems to be around that 11 to 12 second mark. Who can make time in the pit stops and who will lose time in the pit stops, more importantly, because these pit stops could make or break your race. It'll be interesting to see Ed Pedersen's lap times now that he's broken free from Richard Moore. Simon Evans' last lap was a 31.0. Pedersen, Reid, 4 to 31.6. Moore, 32.0.
He does look good, Jamie. He's certainly in clear air. That number 96 car is a very, very quick car, but I think the gap is far too great to the leader. Right,
Mark Pedersen's got Greg Murphy down on pit lane.
Murph, certainly not the best way to start the weekend, Butter.
No, well, it was all right, but Johnny McIntyre clearly is out of practice big time, and it's no wonder he doesn't drive full time anymore. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's in desperation, big time, trying to impress someone, I think, and I think he hit me like 6 times before he finally turned me around at the hip and had me sideways twice, and then finally finished it off. So I don't know. He really got to start using his brain and maybe he'd go a bit further.
Well, would you expect anything less from Greg Murphy? I mean, Murph was certainly very, very relaxed, you know, last year. He didn't have a lot going wrong for him, but it certainly hasn't started right for him.
No, but he's not angry.
No.
And that's
not an angry Greg Murphy.
No, it's not. And normally he would be, you know, there'd be steam coming out his ears.
That would be a disappointed Greg Murphy.
So I think he's got a valid point. And looking at some of that coverage, McIntyre didn't really let up. He was relentless in his will to barge through.
Yeah, so I think some damage steering out of that with probably the last piece of impact when Murph had full opposite lock on it. So looking at Simon Evans' lap times, last lap was a 31.3. Reid Pedersen a 31.5. Moore starting to slip back a 32.2. Simon Evans with a 5.6 second lead. We're about 5 laps away from the pit window opening. The compulsory stop for a driver change between laps 14 and 18. New colours for Ed Pedersen. Burger fuel colours back in April, V8 Supercars.
J.A. Russell on board. International Motorsport run forward.
31.4 for Evans. Let's have a look at Ed Pedersen, 31.7. The gap's out to 6 seconds for Simon Evans out in front. Came very close to a couple of race wins. Great battle with Greg Murphy at Manfield and Pukekohe in last season's championship. On board with Dominic Story, Dale Wood in the iSport Ford.
These guys qualified really well. They had a lot of issues with their car earlier on in qualifying, but a solid performance, and it looks like that's running into the race as well.
Yeah, Dominic Story and Dale Wood proving to be a good combination. Dominic qualified 7th. Wood was a little bit further back in the co-driver's session.
Rear bumper looking like it's just flopping around a little bit. He's got Mitch Cunningham, the number 32 Robert Cunningham construction car behind him. He's starting to get a little close.
The rear bumper is flapping around because that's his rear diffuser that was sitting in the middle of the back straight. No rear diffuser. Right. Talking to the teams, I don't know that they do an awful lot other than aesthetics. They look pretty cool, but I think from an aero point of view, they don't tend to do a lot. But if they're off the car, it might hurt them a little bit because the back of that bumper would be like a big parasail.
A big high-speed corner through turn 9, and they're certainly getting up to 250 k's down the end of this long straight. Doubles as a drag strip going the other way. Here at Taupo.
6 second lead for Simon Evans, 32.0. He's just dropped back a little bit. Ant Pedersen actually made a gain there. No, in fact, 32-0, still a 6-second lead. Just about identical lap times. It's Mitch Cunningham trying to finish off the rear bumper of Dominic Story's iSport Ford.
He might do himself a favour. Here is Mitch Cunningham, nice move up the inside. Oh, he's taking a feel. Who's up the inside? There's Foggy.
Here comes Angus Fogg. He's under the weather, carrying the flu. Tony D'Alberto's impressed with that car throughout the weekend. Tony qualified in third in the co-driver session. He will get into that car during the compulsory pit stops. Back on board with John McIntyre.
He's gained a position. He's got past Richard Moore as well. So 47 car is actually showing good speed. Doing some slightly unusual things with it in qualifying with the rear wing, the shot that you're looking at right now.
Yeah, they were looking for more rear downforce. You don't typically see a lot of rear wing adjustments during, certainly qualifying. You might see it during practice, but not necessarily qualifying. So Moore's starting to go back through this field. McIntyre now up into the third position. His last lap was a 31.5. It's actually half a second quicker than Pedersen and Simon Evans out in front. Evans continuing with that 6-second lead over Ant Pedersen.
Now that he's dispersed of Richard Moore, Shay Davies closing in on the number 15 Oryx car on Moore. So Moore's obviously not feeling real comfortable in that number 10 Mike Pero Holden.
Yeah, just looking a little bit skitterish there, rear end of 33.4 was his last lap. He's 2 seconds slower than the leaders. Evans has just gone through at a 32.0, Pedersen a 31.9, so again that gap is still constant at 6 seconds. Shay Davies drove with Andy Booth in the last Enduro Championship, now paired with Paul Manuel. Morgan Haber, of course, was driving that car through the previous championship, the young Australian.
This is a 24-year-old from the Gold Coast. Runs out of the Macarey Racing stable, based in Yatala. Ex-Ashburton man, Andy Macarey, runs a fantastic Carrera Cup organisation.
Yeah, they've been pretty strong. I think the last round, previous round before Sandown was a little bit tough for them because Shay was as high as third in the points a couple of rounds ago.
Yeah, that was while they were at Townsville, it all turned to tears.
So this is John Penny, Taupo man, former NZ-V8 racer. As I said earlier on, he raced with Paul Manuel in last year's Enduro Series. And young Sean Varney, who's progressed across on the NZ-V8 touring cars. This is the ex-Shane van Gisbergen Ford Falcon, raced a couple of seasons ago. They've done a good job. The car looks really smart.
Yeah, I like it. It's good to see a bit of fluoro out there. We're used to seeing orange and green. Orange and red, but now we've got some green. And JP, a really good guy, and he's just having a great time. No pressure, because Sean's new. He's only had one meeting in a Super Tourer with Paul Manuel back a couple of seasons ago, and good on him.
Acknowledges he's lacking a bit of race fitness, but yeah, a bit sideways there through turn 9. Yeah, young Sean, he's finding his feet. He just needs some seat time. He's had one test session in the car, aided by Shane van Gisbergen. So we'll go back to Dominic Story on board. That pit stop window is not far away. 13 laps complete. We will see the first of our pit stops, and Mark Pedersen's going to get very, very busy down in pit lane. And Mark, those bench times for the pit stops seem to be around that 11 to 12 second mark. No one's really able to reinvent the wheel because they've got the same belt systems in the car and the same seats. So it's about getting in and getting out efficiently.
Yeah, it is. And we saw some of the driver changes before, and honestly, when I saw Murphy and those guys practicing, Greg was just about out of the car before it was stopped. But look, every single driver is here is pacing from one side of the pit lane to the pit wall and back again. So there's going to be a fair bit of activity is going to take place here in the next probably 2 or 3 laps. But I think, look, anywhere from 12, 14 seconds just for the driver change is going to be acceptable.
Yeah, the other thing, it's pretty congested down there, Mork, and you won't want to be stacking up on top of cars pitted next to you as well. So they're going to have to be a little bit selective when they get the guys in. We're just watching
Foggy.
A big brake lock up there from Angus Fogg. Sorry, mate. It is quite congested down there, Mork.
Yeah, it is, but actually the pit lane, like you say, is actually quite wide, and where they do the driver change, it's actually wide enough for 2 cars to stop next door to each other, unlike Hampton Downs. So, look, it's going to be an issue, but I doubt it's going to be a deal breaker if 2 cars come in behind each other.
Pit lane is now open. Simon Evans a 31.8. Ant Pedersen a 31.9. Gap static at 6 seconds. Ant took a 10th out of him on the previous lap, so the pit window is now open. Who's going to blink first and get their co-drivers in the cars? So most of the co-drivers will get into the cars. Here is the race leader, Simon Evans.
Well, what would you do now, Jamie? This guy's doing a great job in front of us, and he's holding the gap. Why would you sort of rush to bring him in?
Well, I don't think there's too much traffic down there at the moment. I'd be going in now because there is no traffic in pit lane. They're at the end of the pit queue, so they've got the opportunity, and you're going to hand over to someone like Shan van Gisbergen, who apparently doesn't go bad.
Yeah, no, okay, you got a good point. You got a good point. Just
I can just see a little bit of congestion down there because it has been tight throughout the weekend so far.
Mind you, the other side of that is that there's going to be congestion when he goes out as well.
If they come in after him, yeah, so likewise. So it's going to be, yeah.
Well, no, even if he stops now, there's going to be congestion with cars behind him who are trying to filter back into the fast lane.
There's the gap. McIntyre is on the move. He was half a second quicker than Pedersen on the last lap. Look at the gap. McIntyre's made up a huge amount of room. In the pits is the race leader, Simon Evans, about to hand over to Shane van Gisbergen.
40 k's an hour as he sneaks into the pit lane.
We've already seen a penalty this weekend for Daniel Gaunt, exceeding pit lane speed limits.
So McIntyre has stayed out on the circuit.
Evans out.
This is a bird's eye view.
Little bit of time getting out. Van Gisbergen obviously experienced, having just come off Sandown, paired with Jono Webb and the VIP Pet Foods Techno Holden. It's not bad. It's not bad. Mark's going to try and get some times down there.
Too, Jamie, is that they've got the whole pit lane to tighten up your belts and do all the other stuff that you got to do.
There's the J.A. Russell Ford. They were 6 seconds behind. Now there's a problem. The door came back open. Johnny Reid in the car. Former king of Taupo. The heyday, the A1 Grand Prix victory here. Absolutely stunning. I was so glad to be here when he did that. But I think they've lost some time because the more Slade, Holden has jumped them in pit lane. Daniel Gaunt getting in the Ferndale Farms Ford.
Bringing a lot of experience to that team. He's back out on the track as Van Gisbergen.
So the gap was 6 seconds before the stop. I reckon the J.A. Russell Ford has lost a little bit of time. I thought Simon was not out of the car as quick as he might have liked. Sean Varney in, John Penny out.
Now this is all pretty new to these guys, especially Sean Varney. JP giving him a hand there.
Yeah, that's taking a little bit longer.
Oh, I don't think they're too worried, Jamie. They're just worried about getting a job done and getting some mileage.
PC, Peter Cunliffe, on the front of the car on the board.
He's certainly not in a hurry, is he?
All right, Sean Varney. The kid's done nothing wrong. I watched him test. Again, Owen Evans was helping out with overseeing him with Sean's dad just to, hey, you know, let's see how he goes. And he was very, very impressed with him. So it's good to have him in the V8 SuperTourers. So still got John McIntyre to pit. They have to complete their pit stops by lap 18. McIntyre staying out a little bit later. Cunningham and Fogg are in. Cunningham to hand over to Cameron Waters. Foggy to hand over to the very experienced Tony D'Alberto, who has been really quick here this weekend.
Whoops, he's overshot his pit by a considerable amount. Boys had to run to catch the car. D'Alberto in. There's Mitch Cunningham.
It's Waters
setting the youngest driver out on the track. That's 20 years of age.
Had a quick chat to Cam earlier on today, and he's loving his racing in Australia. He's doing some late model racing on the dirt around South Australia and Melbourne. They are way cool cars, 900 horsepower on the dirt. Yep, that's cool. Right, there's Richard Moore. Look at the gap back to the J.A. Russell Ford. There comes Heimgartner. Heimgartner will be the one to watch. He has been stellar throughout the weekend so far. It's Cunningham. Waters come out. Fogg D'Alberto car, D'Alberto at the wheel, so the green light's on, co-drivers in the car. Shane van Gisbergen effectively the race leader. We've still got a couple to pit. I think still McIntyre to come. There's Mark Gibson down in pit lane, ready to get in the car.
So Heimgartner was obviously the fastest man in qualifying 2 by a nice margin as well. And that was done in cold conditions. So you're right, Jamie. He may actually relish these conditions at the moment. They obviously got the car in a sweet spot.
I'm just looking at Van Gisbergen's lap times. That was the out lap, so we'll wait for him to come through next time. So it's still McIntyre Gibson entry. Here is the Story Woods number 9. Coming into pit lane, Dale Wood getting in. Was paired with Angus Fogg last season. See how they get this done.
Another regular, 30 years of age out of Victoria in the V8 Supercar field, driving with Brad Jones Racing, and he's away. And
that looked relatively clean. Yep. Mark, from your aspect, did anyone really stand out there in the pit lane, in the pit stops?
Yeah, absolutely. The Heimgartner car, there was a stellar job for those guys, along with Paul Manuel and co. They're probably the fastest of all, but look, the two slowest stops that I recorded was actually the Ant Pedersen and the Simon Evans, Shane Van Gisbergen, and all gearing up for quite big changes, and they're both 17.5 and 18 seconds respectively, and the fastest I got was 12.8 by Andre Heimgartner, so quite a big difference.
A little bit of work to do for those guys. 32.0 for John McIntyre, still has not pitted. He's on lap 17. He'll have to pit now. Pit window closing at lap 18, so he's doing the same pace that Simon Evans was doing before the pit stops. Here's McIntyre in now, on board. The Blackwoods protector Ford handing over to Taupo's Mark Gibson.
So McIntyre's stretched out and done as much as he can, because he's obviously been quite quick.
Again, took a little bit of time to get out. Mark Gibson in. So that should put Van Gisbergen back into the lead. His last lap was a 31.2, 8 tenths quicker than McIntyre's previous, as before the pit stop. Gibson out. That didn't look too bad, Mark. I'm going to take a guess at about 16.
Geez, yeah, I wouldn't want to go against you in a round of poker, because you're exactly right, at 16.4.
Lane window is now closed.
That was a guess.
For driver changes.
And pit lane is now closed, so anyone that hasn't taken this stop is in a whole lot of trouble.
We have seen some different strategies with this team over the weekend, Mark. They've gone out on green tyres straight from the hit in qualifying, whereas the other team's gone out on rotor tyres and then gone to a green set of tyres in the qualifying session. So they're not doing what everyone else is doing.
It's interesting, though, because the engineer for this car, the number 47 Falcon, is Mark Johnson, who has worked for a number of years on the International Motorsport car of Ant Pedersen. So it's which hasn't really, he hasn't really done anything too far out of the mould, but they seem to be this weekend, that's for sure.
All right, so Shane Van Gisbergen's last lap was a 31.3. Richard Moore, number 10. Tim Slade at the wheel at a 31.4. So a 10th quicker for Van Gisbergen. So Slade, Slade's going to be fast with the experience he's got racing for Walkinshaw Racing in the Super Cheap colours of the 8 Supercars. But Shane Van Gisbergen has, I believe, about a 14-second lead. A 14-second lead. They've gone from 6 to 14 seconds. So the Pedersen-Reed team, they lost a huge amount of time in that pit stop.
Well, they had to stop again and open that door and then go again. So that's where he lost his position. It's on board with Gibson, the local man, as he heads through the BNTSs.
Got Mark Pedersen back down in pit lane, and he's got John McIntyre with him, his side of the story.
Yeah, Johnny, you're smiling away. That was an outstanding stint in the car.
Look, the car was great. It's fantastic. We missed it in qualifying, but gee, the pace was unreal. So, yeah, we're not here to make up the numbers, so we charged on.
That's good, Luke. You got to run us through the incident with Murphy.
Yeah, look, it's the rule is that you've got to give racing room. You can't cover the inside line after lap 1. So he did it once, and then the next time I went down the inside, he just kept on driving into me. So yeah, he sort of turned himself in on me. So it's a shame for him, because we're having a good battle. I'm sure I would have got him anyway, but that's the way it goes.
Surprise, surprise. Two differing views on a motor racing incident. Who would have thought?
I bet you that's going to be a good discussion later on in the DSO room.
Well, that's right. I mean, there could be ramifications for, ramifications for Murphy. He's done anyway, right? He is not going to get any points for race number 1. So on board with Mark Gibson and the Blackwoods protected Ford. Just waiting to see where they cycle out. They may have done very, very well with that pit stop. So this is Dale Wood and Daniel Gord. Daniel Gord bringing a lot of experience to the Ferndale Farms team. Chris Hanley with someone to bounce off his wood. Runs wide in the iSport Ford. That'll give the position to Daniel Gord, who's doing lots of sports car racing in Australia with the Australian GT Championship.
This team very, very thankful for the experience that Daniel's brought this weekend to help young Chris Hanley, who's only done, I think, 3 or 4 races.
Shane Van Gisbergen's last lap, a 31.6. Spec Racing team looking for their first ever victory in the BNT NZ V8 SuperTourers. 11-second lead, and it's actually the Gibson McIntyre Ford that has vaulted to second with that pit stop.
Man zooming in the background while we watch this battle is Tim Slade.
Yeah, Slade will be on the hunt because Gibson's first outlap was a 32.5. Slade's the quickest driver on track at a 31.3. Tony D'Alberto at a 31.8. He's back in the 8th position. So an 11-second lead for Shane van Gisbergen. 20 laps complete on board with the Giz. About to go by his old car.
Yeah, that'd be ironic, wouldn't it? I tell you what, I bet you, knowing Shane, that he's actually having a little chat on the radio about that.
So the Smeg Commodore at the head of the field by 11 seconds currently over Mark Gibson in the Blackwood Protector Ford, with Tim Slade chasing him. There's only a couple of seconds between them. Then it's a further 7 seconds back to Andre Heimgartner in the Hydrolink number 22. There's the gap back to second, and there is Tim Slade, not too far away from Mark Gibson.
Tim Slade has been incredibly quick in this number 10 car in previous endurance rounds, and he's brought a lot of experience to the team, to Richard Moore. And the young fellow Richard Moore has certainly picked up a whole lot of confidence from having this man sit alongside him. That's the beauty about this category, and having all these additional endurance drivers. Using the V8 drivers for the experience is second to none.
Absolutely. So Slade is on the hunt. He has been very, very good. Paired with Richard Moore, the ENG SuperTourers.
This car here also has an Australian as the engineer, Matty Crawford, who's synonymous with Holden Racing Team in Australia for many years, is engineering this car now. So lots of Australian influence in the M3 racing.
It doesn't end there. Shane van Gisbergen's brought Jeff Slater across from Techno to help out the Smeg team on the engineering side, obviously with Stephen Giles and Matt Houston overseeing that race car back on board with van Gisbergen. Best lap of the race, a 30.828. That was set by Simon Evans in the first stint. Just looking at van Gisbergen's last lap time, it's actually just disappeared off the scoring, but he looks pretty comfortable, pretty relaxed in there at the moment.
Get up to about 250 kilometres an hour down this long straight.
Little check on the brakes. Huge brake pressure.
This is
Tony D'Alberto.
And Cameron Waters. And I tell you what, this Cameron Waters put up a heck of a fight at Sandown recently alongside Jack Perkins. He had a massive off at turn 8 this morning. And that is something that just does not happen. And I saw the in-car footage of it, and he just did not know what happened.
He was impressive here with Simon McLennan in the Enduros as well. So that battle on track is for 7th and 8th. 7th and 8th, Shane van Gisbergen's last lap at 31.9. Gibson a 32.3. Tim Slade a 31.3. So he's got 6 tenths on van Gisbergen at the moment, who's still got a 12-second lead. But Slade is right in behind. There's a little bit of contact, and around goes Waters. The tap from Tony D'Alberto. Waters recovers. You could almost see that coming. There was a little bit of argy-bargy before that. Waters goes around in the Cunningham Construction Ford. Just the littlest of touches.
Well, I'd suggest that D'Alberto will have to address that. He can, and he's not going to lose a position to anyone else. I think you'll see him slow down and let Waters, because Waters got away quickly. He'll return the position to him.
Just a little nudge into the left rear at turn 1. Hancock turn 1, van Gisbergen, there's the gap. No, that was the lapped Sean Varney. And Slade's up into second. He's gone by Mark Gibson, so a change in position for second. Slade has gone by him on this lap. He was a full second quicker on the previous lap, and you would expect that. You know, Mark is not as experienced as Tim Slade, but Mark's doing a solid job out there. It was a pretty impressive stint out there from John McIntyre, considering the contact with Greg Murphy. They did have some very, very good pace with the Blackwood Protector Ford.
Yep.
I wonder if Murph's gone down to say hello yet.
Oh, I reckon he might.
So Evans and van Gisbergen out in front, Moore and Slade. This car in second. The gap is 12.9 seconds. Van Gisbergen's last lap at 31.8. Slade at 31.9.
Car 3 needs to readdress with car 32.
Just confirming that they're telling D'Alberto to readdress.
Car 3.
Yeah, well, that's fair. And to be fair, he's got to do it, because if he doesn't, he has to tour the pit lane, and it's going to add, I don't know, 40 seconds to his race time if he Gibson back the spot now. He can have another go and probably end up where he is now.
Well, Waters is 6 seconds behind him, so he's going to have to just about stop somewhere out on track to readdress that, excuse me.
Yeah, well, 6 seconds is better than 40.
9 minutes left to go in this race. We're on lap 23 of a scheduled 30. Here's a replay of the pass from Slade, and aided by the fact that Gibson just ran a little bit wide on the run through to 4.
Must have got right out of shape heading through goal.
So let's wait and see what the gap is. If Slade's starting to eat some time out of Van Gisbergen, but Shane will be pretty comfortable out front. 31.8 last lap, 31.9 for Slade. Van Gisbergen a 32.0. So Slade will have the eyes on, using all of the curbs and more down through the BNTSs. So a 32.0 from Van Gisbergen, 31.5 for Slade. The gap is now 12.4 seconds with about 6 laps or 8 minutes remaining.
Oh, I don't think it's really worth worrying about. Obviously,
So
these two...
Alberto has readdressed that.
Yeah, well, the beauty about what he's done now, Jamie, is, and he hasn't lost it. He's lost only the spot to Cunningham. To Cameron Waters. He can have another go.
Yeah, he can have another go. Otherwise, a post-race penalty, you're right, might be up in the range of sort of 20 to 30 seconds plus.
Oh, it'd be more than that. I mean, it's a long pit lane.
And it's better than having to take a drive-through, being able to readdress it as well.
Yeah, this is like a second chance.
Right, so Van Gisbergen is your race leader in the Smeg Racing number 4 team, looking for their first ever win in the BNT NZ SuperTourers. Tim Slade in second, Mark Gibson third. Now the gap, Gibson to Heimgartner now in fourth, is just 3 seconds. So Heimgartner's on a bit of a charge. This battle we're watching between Waters and D'Alberto is for 7th and 8th. Up ahead of them will be Paul Manuel. Johnny Reid in the J.A. Russell Ford, paired with Ant Pedersen in the 5th position.
Heimgartner through turn 11.
Yeah, there's the gap. Heimgartner's last lap was a 31.3. So he's lapping faster than the leaders at the moment.
I reckon he's got a very, very good chance here. I mean,
1.6 seconds quicker on the last lap, Shane.
Well, Gibson, that was a bad mistake from him through the infield, and I mean, just gifted.
Heimgartner sideways down through the BNTSs. He's trying hard. He can see the car in front of him. That's for the final podium.
31.2, so 8 tenths. Just more than that. It's 1.8 seconds quicker than that.
He locked the left front under brakes, though, down into turn number 1. So he is right on the ragged edge. It's been impressive. Again, race fit, tested with Ant Pedersen in the Super Black Racing Ford at Winton during the week. Preparation for Bathurst in a couple of weeks' time with the FPR team. Paul Morris did a good, solid job in that first stint to give Andre a car that he could do something with at the business end of this first race of the weekend at Taupo.
Well, that's the other thing that we haven't taken into consideration yet. Simon Evans has handed the number 4 car over to Shane Van Gisbergen, and it's going quick. I mean, the two good drivers. John McIntyre's handed that number 47 car over to Matt Gibson, and Mark, he's either struggling or the tyres have just gone a little bit shoddy, and you probably wouldn't be surprised with, because they got a fair bit of damage in that opening skirmish with Murphy.
First lap that Van Gisbergen's been quicker than Slade for about the last 5 or 6. 31.7 for Van Gisbergen, a 32.0 for Slade. But Heimgartner is on the move. That gap is visibly closing in the last lap.
This is a great drive by Andre.
4 laps left to go, 5 minutes. We might get to the time finish rather than 4 laps. Oh, big look up. And he's straight lined the S's. He's just undone all of that hard work, and that shows you how hard he was trying. He was right on the edge trying to close that gap to Gibson, but he hasn't actually lost out that much by shortcutting going through the grass.
As long as he hasn't made a game, but I wouldn't think so.
Shane Van Gisbergen's just done a 31.2. He's picked up the pace by half a second. Slade tried to go with him with a 31.4. Here's the lockup, just pinched the rears.
Yep.
Couldn't get it turned in.
He just probably changed it, put it down just a bit too quick in the rear, and it locks the rear wheel, put it into a lock and then a slide, and then you've got to recorrect.
If you were Mark Gibson right about now, you'd be going, phew. Thank you for, well, maybe a couple of laps, if that, but we've not got too much time left here. Race number 1 from Taupo for the BNT NZ SuperTourers. Van Gisbergen, Slade, Gibson, Heimgartner. This battle continues between Waters and D'Alberto. They've already made contact once. Here's D'Alberto.
No, it might happen again.
That's at 5.
Waters will try and live there. He's not shy.
Try and launch it up the inside. No, D'Alberto, but D'Alberto runs a little bit wide, trying to get it stopped into 7 at the hairpin.
And this is going to be hard for D'Alberto because it's slippery around there.
Run up through 8 on the approach to 9. He's out in the marbles. Here comes Daniel Gaunt. He wants to play. So Daniel Gaunt is in the 9th position. He's actually disappeared off the scoring sheets completely. Obviously maybe an issue with a transponder or something, but certainly Daniel Gaunt is in the 9th position. And that may be 8th very, very shortly. It's Gaunt's last lap. Well, we're not too sure if it's registering or not, but a 32.3 apparently. Van Gisbergen's just picked up the pace. He's only a 10th off the fastest lap of the race at a 30.9. A 31.6 for Slade. The gap's gone out to 13.6 seconds. He's just chewed a second out of him.
Well, he's just rubbing salt into Slade's wound, isn't he? I mean, they don't really need to increase the gap, but that's just shame.
So it's not too far away from the end.
Here we go. This lap car as they go past Sean Barney. Oh, no.
Oh, he just about got into the side of Heimgartner. That would have had the eyes wide open for Heimgartner as he launches.
I'll tell you what, he's going to have to make it happen soon because I think the race is going to finish before the laps are counted out. But look at this, Heimgartner this is a big fast corner full of confidence. Who's going to be the man that's got the most?
Little lift there for Gibson. Heimgartner's right there with him. Closing stages of this first race, 27 laps complete.
And Gibson going on the defensive, and he can do that. Here comes Heimgartner. He's going to drive it round. He'll have to pull it back, and he'll give it a go now.
Gibson's going to lose momentum. He was a little bit narrow, and Heimgartner, he just ran it off.
We are on the last lap.
Last lap board is out for Shane Van Gisbergen. There's Heimgartner to the outside, the unfavoured side, and he's driven around. Oh, Gibson runs it in deep. He's off track again. Gibson's going to get him back up the inside. He's on the dirty side of the track.
He's going to get the run up the inside here. He's going to get the drive. There's not enough.
So the last lap board is out. Van Gisbergen at 32.6, Slade at 31.9. The gap is 13 seconds. This battle for the final podium. Heimgartner trying to get up the inside. Doesn't give it the favoured line to 2.
Fantastic slide out of Hankook hairpin.
Mark Gibson doing a great job trying to hold off the young charger.
This is a chance here.
Sideways for Gibson. He can cover. It is the last lap. He's going to have his mirrors full for about, another 900, 1,200 metres to go. Heimgartner couldn't get up the inside.
He's got a nose.
Got to run to 8. Got to run to 8. No, Gibson shuts him down, but he's out in the marbles on the approach to 9. Heimgartner got out of that.
He is all over the place.
Heimgartner to the outside on the approach up to Fuchs Corner, turn 11.
This is going to be a tough one. I reckon Heimgartner can do this. He had some good grip around the top of the corner last time. If he keeps it there, he'll get the drive, and he's got it.
Yeah, he's got the job done. Heimgartner for the final podium.
Now
Shane Van Gisbergen's heading down towards the finish line.
Flag has now been shown to car 4, lead car.
Shane Van Gisbergen. Checkered flag. Shane Van Gisbergen has taken the victory from Tim Slade. Smeg Racing's first ever win, and Heimgartner's got Mark Gibson right in behind him down through the BNTSs.
He went wide again.
But it's Shane Van Gisbergen and Simon Evans taking the victory. The first ever win for Smeg Racing, the first ever win for Simon Evans. And that would be Shane Van Gisbergen's
fifth race victory.
So here's the replay of the finish. Smeg Racing will be absolutely ecstatic, and he just cruised across the line. Shane Van Gisbergen doing the job. That car had express pace at the end. He just started throwing out high 30s right towards the end there. Simon Evans, his co-driver, in the car with the fastest lap of the race. So confirming the results for race number 1, Simon Evans and Shane Van Gisbergen victorious by 9.2 seconds over Moore and Slade, followed by Andre Heimgartner, Paul Morris. That was a great battle between Heimgartner and Gibson. Gibson, McIntyre in 4th, ahead of Pedersen, Reed, Manuel Davies, Fogg, D'Alberto, Cunningham, Waters, Hanley, Gaunt and Story and Wood, completing the top 10 for race 1 here at Taupo.